Welcome, everyone. I am Brenda Radido, and this is Africa Matters. The African Union is looking for its next chief, and 4 candidates have made the cut to become the next AU Commission chairperson in February. But what's the hiring process and job description? That's what we'll be finding out. A new AU chairperson is elected every 4 years, and he can only serve for 4-year terms. Even though the elections are about 6 months away, candidates have been vetted and the shortlist has been published. Let's take a look at the qualifications and the criteria used for their selection. The chairmanship rotates between 5 regions of the continent. This time, the top continental job will be a candidate from the Eastern African region, while his deputy will be from Northern region. The Western, Southern and Central Africa will compete for the 6 positions of AU commissioners. 4 candidates are vying to become the continental body's chairman. Djibouti's former Prime Minister Mahamoud Ali Yusuf, Kenya's former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, Madagascar's Foreign Affairs Minister Richard Randriamandrato, and Mauritius' former Prime Minister Anil Gayan have all been shortlisted for the post. Heads of states of member states will then cast their votes by secret ballot. A candidate needs a 2/3 majority to win, and if that's inconclusive, the post will go to the candidate who gets the highest number of votes between the 2 top candidates. The AU chair is key in driving the continental mission across the continent with their member states and continental partners. But he can't threaten member states' sovereignty while doing it, or appoint or dismiss the 6 commissioners he works with. Let's hear more from Paul Simon Handy. He's the Institute of Security Studies East Africa Regional Director and representative to the African Union. He joins me from Naivasha, Kenya. Thank you so much for joining us here on Africa Matters. Why does the AU chairperson's post matter, and is it suited to the needs of the continent?
It is definitely, thank you for having me. It is definitely a position that matters because of the new geopolitical importance that the AU is taking, not just within Africa, but also more recently with the admission of the AU in the G20 club, also globally. So the EU becomes Africa's most important continental organization, and being the chair, the election of the chair of the Commission of the AU is certainly an election of continental importance.
But does the African Union chief have enough powers to effectively do his job, of helping tackle the continental challenges?
That's the tricky question. There has been a lot of, let's say, unease, frustration by the last incumbent, the last people who have occupied that position, who have complained that the prerogative of that positions were not suited to the immense expectations that are placed under the AU. They are not even suited to deliver on the mandate of the AU. So the AU is basically at a crossroads. The AU has to decide whether it wants a strong commission. And when I say the AU has to decide, it's basically African member states. All African member states need to decide what kind of power, what kind of competences they would like to endow the commission with, and particularly its chair. So this election is also going to be about the future of the AU.
But then does it mean that this decision you're talking about, the decision that has to be made by the assemblies, should they make it before they cast their vote?
Ideally, yes, but it's certainly not going to happen. It is also fine to make that decision after, because at the end of the day, the heads of states are the drivers of this process. And there's a reform of the AU that is going on, but this reform has not, it has been implemented, but it has not necessarily been able to answer that specific question. It has not really addressed the issue of the prerogatives of the chair of the AU Commission, and leaving it in a stage of not really a commission, but not more a secretary general, a secretariat general as it used to be.
So what do the four candidates then running for the top job bring to the table that is likely to impact the youngest continent in the world?
When we look at the profiles of the people who applied, we see two interesting profiles. Three of them are either foreign minister or ex-foreign minister. The the three of them out of the four. The last one is the former Kenyan Prime Minister. He doesn't have the same profile as the three. He's certainly politically the most astute candidate who probably has the skills, the type of skills that are needed for that position. Mm-hmm. But I am not sure whether what appears as an advantage for in terms of what the position needs will also be considered like that by those who vote, namely the heads of state. I mean, what I see as an advantage for the Kenyan candidate might actually be a disadvantage for heads of state. I am not sure heads of state want a strong personality, somebody who can speak eye to eye with them and who's able to actually drive them into what the African Union Commission needs to be. So that's the dilemma the Kenyan candidate will face.
But, you know, it's good you're talking about the dilemma that the Kenyan candidate will face. But at the same time, let's have a look at, you know, that rivalry that we are seeing within the Eastern Africa region. You know, we're talking about Djibouti Djibouti and Kenya. And this is not the first time it will play on the floor of the House. In 2017, the same thing happened when Kenya fielded their own candidate. And again, that time Kenya wanted the chairman position and Djibouti was like, we are fielding our candidate for the deputy chairperson position. And this actually made the two countries to lose, you know, the positions. Are we likely to see that play again?
It is clear that the Djiboutian candidate is a serious competition. So the Kenyan candidate, Djibouti is a country, is an East African country, but very, very, very special, not just because of the small size, but also because it's both a Francophone, an Arabic, and also somehow by virtue of being in East Africa, Anglophone country. It means that as a Djiboutian candidate, he has networks literally over the continent, in French-speaking countries, in North African countries, but also his networks reach far as Southern Africa. Right. So he will certainly be a strong competition for Raila Odinga. I see him being a stronger candidate than the Mauritian and the Malagasy candidates.
All right. And, you know, lastly, what will be the real test and priority for the incoming chairperson, especially when it comes to the structure of the African Union Commission and the challenges that the continent is currently facing?
I think there are many challenges, but we should not think that the AU is necessarily the conduit to address all those challenges. The AU is not alone. There are member states, there are regional economic communities. There's only so much the AU can do. But as a chair of the person, the challenges are first internally. The reform of the African Union needs to be taken forward, and the chairperson needs to champion that because there have been obstacles to the implementation of this reform. Secondly, the AU is now taking or embracing a new role as an international actor. The AU has become also a member of the G20, the group of 20 countries, which is a massive leap forward for the African Union, which for the first time is not just going to be dealing with inter-African matters, but also international matters. The AU becomes an international actor. So this is exciting times also for the new chair of the Commission, and then the perennial questions of peace and security, and of course, development, particularly the access to international finance.
All right, Paul Simon Handy, the Institute of Security Studies, East Africa Regional Director and representative to the African Union. Thank you for talking to us here on Africa Matters.
My pleasure.
We have more stories coming up for you here on Africa Matters, including
David in Jigawa State, Nigeria, with a story of how flooding is devastating lives and properties in northern Nigeria.
Enforced disappearances degrade human rights in any society. I am Darren Alancheyune in central Uganda, where families painfully live through the tribulations of this suppression.
Devastating floods in Nigeria have killed hundreds and displaced more than 200,000 people. In northern Nigeria, they have claimed dozens of lives while destroying homes and hectares of farmland. Palom David visited one of the worst heat areas in Jigawa State to see the impact firsthand.
Nigeria's Jigawa State is experiencing one of its worst floods in recent years. Weeks of heavy rainfall have displaced around 50,000 people. And Kiyawa resident Sanusi Abdu and his wife Aisha Mohammed are now left to deal with the damage.
You can see how everything is soaked and ruined. Properties, all the rooms and even the floors are destroyed. Water entered through the doors. During the flood, the water in the room was at knee level.
Can you see the water marks on the wall? That is the level the water got to. Everything in my kitchen got destroyed. The walls are falling off, the floors are breaking, and we're just trying to survive as there is no food to eat.
Their children are also recovering from a bout of fever caused by the floods. Farms like this one have also been submerged, and experts say this could worsen the food crisis that many people are already facing across the country.
I cultivated at least 3 hectares of land, and now all these hectares of land is empty. What you are going to get there is only plain water, where we lose like rice, sorghum, millet, cowpea, even hibiscus. All what you have cultivated now is being damaged by this heavy rainfall.
Fatima Suli and her 7 children have sought refuge at a primary school, which is now being turned into an internally displaced persons camp. She relies on food and grains provided by local authorities to survive.
We are here at a school and the flood is not over yet because it is still raining. We are not even sure what will happen to us once the holidays are over and the students resume. We may be asked to vacate the school, and even if we leave, we have nowhere to stay because some of our houses are destroyed and there are no houses to rent.
Fatima and the more than 200 other women and children here hope that soon they'll return home to dry lands. State officials now hope to fix drainages and conduct planning and environmental impact assessments for all construction projects to avoid similar disasters. Palom David, Africa Matters, Jigawa.
Speaking of disasters, water hyacinth is wreaking havoc in Kenya's Lake Naivasha, affecting fishing, boat navigation and irrigation. As the local ecosystem suffers, one young innovator has found a way to help clean up the lake and make use of the invasive plant at the same time, as Isedin Haji reports.
George has been fishing Kenya's Lake Naivasha all his life. It's a challenging job at the best of times, but navigating his small boat has been made much harder by the thick carpet of invasive water hyacinth that chokes the water.
Before the water hyacinths were as many as it is, fishing was not bad. We are challenged today. When they cover our fishing nets, we are forced to return and monitor the situation the following day.
But not everyone who relies on this lake views the invasive weed as a menace. For some people, such as Simon, it's a vital source of income and sustenance.
Despite the water hyacinth challenge, we get income through it. We harvest them and we have a ready market for them.
In Nairobi, 26-year-old Joseph Nguthiru turns Naivasha's environmental crisis into an opportunity. He converts water hyacinth into biodegradable alternatives to single-use plastics.
Currently, our biggest use case is in agriculture and seedling packaging. where our products are being used instead of the regular plastics to plant tree nurseries and to plant seedlings in tree nurseries. And the idea behind this is that when you plant a tree, when you plant a seedling, use our seedling bags as opposed to the normal plastic ones. The idea behind this is that as our products disintegrate into the ground, they release nutrients which act as manure and make the plants to grow faster.
Joseph and his team have so far processed about 20 hectares worth of hyacinth at Lake Naivasha. Researchers say a sustainable project is killing two birds with one stone, addressing the problems of plastic pollution and invasive species at the same time.
Hyacinth is a regenerative plant. That means much as we are sorting out the hyacinth from the pollution of the lake, we are confident that as we harvest, still we'll be able to get more hyacinth for the processing of the potting bags. So we'll be able to sustain the project as well as clear the hyacinth from the water bodies.
Water hyacinth is one of the world's most problematic aquatic weeds. The United Nations Environment Agency, UNEP, says that the aquatic weed affects over 50 countries globally.
Here at Lake Naivasha, Joseph Ngutiru's vision is more than just a project. It represents a sustainable pathway to coexistence with nature by turning the overabundance of water hyacinth into a resource. He demonstrates how innovation and community effort can help restore balance to our ecosystems. Isadin Haji, Africa Matters, at the shores of Lake Naivasha, Kenya.
To Cameroon now, where a sharp rise in the price paid for cocoa beans has boosted the incomes of farmers there. The top global cocoa producers, Ivory Coast and Ghana, suffer a supply shortage due to poor harvest. Harrison Tamfu traveled to the southwestern part of the country to talk to cocoa farmers about how the boom in prices is affecting their lives.
Sekis Bayeri is on his way to his cocoa farm in Mondoni, a village in the southwest region of Cameroon. He's been cultivating the crop for over a decade. Like many farmers in the country, his cocoa business is seeing some of the highest profits in living memory.
Everybody is very, very happy. In fact, cocoa is gold now. Cocoa is gold now.
Cameroon's cocoa prices have increased dramatically because of poor harvest in top-producing countries of Ivory Coast and Ghana. Before the boom, a kilo of cocoa was sold for $1 in the Central African nation. The same amount is now sold for almost $10, the highest rate nationally and globally. There are tens of thousands of cocoa farms like this in Cameroon. They produce about 300,000 metric tons of cocoa every year, the fifth biggest production in the world. For the farmers, these cocoa beans may just be their passport to prosperity now that the prices have skyrocketed.
I am now constructing my house, which I never imagined that I could do it within this short period of time. Because a bag of cocoa now is like 5 bags of cocoa in those years backward. And this increase in price have also helped me to be paying my children's school fees in one fold. Whereas in the other years, I used to pay small parts.
Now the price of cocoa, it don't increase. Yes, I get hope now, so for September, I will be able now for buy my kids them. Their school need all the way they need, I will be able now for buy and for them now.
And all farmers, they'll be very happy.
They'll be very happy.
Official statistics show that over 500,000 Cameroonians depend on cocoa production for their livelihood. The government is making sure that they spend their newfound wealth productively.
Building the capacities of our producers to make sure that they manage their income very well, do a lot of savings, and of course invest in other income generating activities so that they can later better use their resources, even if the prices of cocoa were to drop a little more than we have today.
Farmers who had long abandoned their farms because of high production cost and poor prices are now scrambling to grow the crop. Some, like Bayeri, are already enjoying the profit while it lasts. Harrison Tamfu, Africa Matters, Mondoni, Cameroon.
To Uganda now, where cases of people being snatched from their loved ones have intensified since 2019. As the world marks the International Day of the Victims of Enforced Disappearances on August 30th, Darren Alan Cheyune visited a shuttered home in Kampala, which is struggling to make ends meet since the man of the house went missing in late 2020.
Sarah Damulira's heart bleeds for her family and her husband. She and her 7 children have not seen him in nearly 4 years. It's believed John was abducted by security forces on November 21st, 2020.
He left here, his home, to go to work. We waited for the time he normally returns home, just like any wife waits for her husband. The evening came and he was not back. We tried calling, but his phone was off. We heard that he had been picked up and taken. Since then, I started looking for him at different prisons, and up to today, I have never found him.
Like any loving father, John Damulira enjoyed spending the evenings with his children. His youngest child turned 8 a few weeks ago, and his distraught family hopes that the long wait for him will not be in vain.
Sarah and John had lived together for 30 years, and she says she had never seen him engage in any political activity. John's capture happened at the height of the violent 2021 presidential elections. Musician Robert Kyagulanyi, commonly known as Bobby Wine, stood up with his youthful National Unity platform to challenge President Yoweri Museveni's reign.
The Museveni regime increases pressure depending on the pressure it is facing. And so with the emergence of the People Power movement and the National Unity platform, they realized that they had to use every tool dictators use out there in the book. And so that's how they decided to engage in so many abductions, extrajudicial killings, and all sorts of things.
Almost every week, the NUP receives reports of unlawful arrests of its party supporters across the country. President Yoweri Museveni appears to have no qualms about his countrymen vanishing. In an address on March 7, 2021, he said, "The disappearances are a consequence of the essentially treasonable acts of elements of the opposition." Human Rights Watch says he's also failed to investigate and prosecute the security forces responsible for the forced disappearances. Whereas some allegedly faced torture but are later released, John remains one of 18 still missing.
I think people are disappeared because of tyrants who don't have regard for the rule of law, for democracy, and for human life. So it's just a matter of putting an end to the tyranny, to the dictatorships, to repressive regimes. That's the only way these things can come to an end. Because, you see, if the Museveni regime was ashamed of what they did during the last elections, they wouldn't be abducting people up to now.
Since 2019, the NUP opposition party has offered legal and welfare support to families whose loved ones have been detained, disappeared, injured, or even killed. The open-ended question of John's disappearance has broken his family, but Sarah and her children are not giving up on the belief that he may still one day walk through the front door. Darren Alan Cheyune, Africa Matters, Kampala, Central Uganda.
The Paris Paralympic Games are underway, and African athletes will be hoping to improve on their tally from Tokyo 3 years ago when they came away with 63 medals. That haul was less than in Rio 2016 when they secured 97 medals. A teenage Ugandan swimmer is hoping to contribute to the continent's success and bring home her country's first ever Paralympic gold. Her name is Husna Kukundakwe, and this is her story.
Husna Kukundakwe is a 2-time Paralympian, and she's only 17 years old. She was the youngest competitor at the Tokyo Games 3 years ago, finishing 12th in her 100 metres event. She's qualified for 6 races in Paris, but she and her coach agreed she'll focus on 3 of them.
It's not necessary to have all those events, so we decided on the main 3 that I wanted to take part of, that we believe have potential, and those are the ones we're going for.
Husna says training as a swimmer built her physical strength and improved her self-esteem.
As I grew in the sport, I started to feel more confident in myself through swimming, because swimming is a sport where you have to fully undress and expose yourself to the world. So I eventually got used to people pointing at me, looking at me differently, pointing fingers, laughing. I was born with my disability. I have no lower right hand and 3 complete fingers. Of course, I didn't realize that I was different until I was like 5 years old. Because when I was at home, my siblings, my cousins, my entire family basically treated me like I was no different from them.
Despite Uganda lacking the training facilities available in other countries, Hasna has won medals over the past 6 years in several international competitions. And she wants Paris to be the next one. Claire Herriot, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, or ideas on what you'd like us to cover on YouTube or on X using the hashtag Africa Matters. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Brenda Radido.